Politics. This is my name's Ben Sellers, and been doing this a little while now. Getting used to it. Still not very slick, especially not on the start. But just to let you know that you can watch Pint and Politics, obviously on Twitter, which I think most people do, but you can also watch it on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel now. So that's all through Socialist Telly, and there's lots of other interesting programs through the week on that as well. So check that out. So tonight, May Day weekend. I've had a interesting one. I mean, it's very strange not being able to go to rallies and marches and the normal routine that you do every year on May Day. But so took part in some of the online stuff, and then went to a lovely pub called the Boathouse in Wylam and drank away my sorrows. And it was very nice though. So and I'm drinking I think it's Blood Orange IPA from Beavertown. So it's nice. That actually, it's lovely. And tonight we've got a kind of music special. Been meaning to do this for a while, actually. Been talking to Joe Solo about it. We finally got it sorted. And tonight we've got Jess Silk and Joe. And Jess is a folk / punk singer from Kings Winford, which is in West Midlands. No, it's Black Country, right?
Indeed.
We did a program on like where we went to Birmingham, basically, well, virtually, and they were teaching me about yams and the Black Country and things like that. And I think I kind of like got there in the end, but I did make a few faux pas along the way.
Yeah, I do. I play gigs all over, and my mates do tend to take the mick because obviously there's nothing wrong with being from Birmingham, but I'm not from Birmingham. I'm from the Black Country. It's two very different places.
Yeah, this I've learned. But I mean, it's the same in the northeast. Like, if you call somebody that's from Durham, you say they're from Newcastle, it's just like the end of the world. But it's I've taken this from Bandcamp, so I'm sorry about this if this is completely inaccurate. But it says you're a shouty but melodic brand of music. I know that you often sing in a terrific Jeremy Corbyn Superman T-shirt as well, which is really nice. How was your May Day anyway, Jess?
It was good. I enjoyed it. I think I actually had three gigs yesterday. 2 of them were pre-recorded. So I was playing in Belfast, and I was playing in Nottingham, and I was playing in the Black Country / Wolverhampton as well, which was the live one. So yeah.
That's incredible.
There is something to be said for this online gig.
Yeah, it's quite exotic. I mean, like Belfast 1 minute, and
Yeah, busy day.
And what are you drinking, Jess?
I am drinking Thatcher's Gold.
Thatcher's
Gold.
Gold.
Because it's in a metal glass. But yeah, I'm on the cider tonight, as usual.
Very nice. Great stuff. Well, it's really good to have you on. Thanks very much for coming. Next, we've got Joe Solo. A little bit tricky to introduce Joe, actually, in a few words, just because he has done so much. Like I was reading through some. I mean, obviously, I've known you for quite a while, and you've done gigs at the People's Bookshop, and we've met in various kind of situations, and you're just a dynamo, really. So, like, trying to describe you. But what I do quite like is to take people's Twitter bios, because they're quite funny, and obviously you've written them yourself. So, but it says on there that you are. Folk singer, punk rocker, washing machine engineer, and rabble-rousing socialist big mouth. So is that your PR?
That's pretty accurate, isn't it? I think that just about sums us up. Pissy is a phrase I'd use there. I don't think Jess has read the memo here. You can't possibly be on this Socialist Telly drinking Thatchers, for God's sake.
Didn't think about that. I can start on the rum instead if that makes you feel better, but that'll probably fall off my chair, so that's probably not wise.
No, if it's from a can, just make sure you're dancing on it by the end of the night, jumping up and down on it. Be right.
How's your weekend been, Joe?
It's been a bit nuts, a bit like Jess been all over. I haven't played as many shows, but I did one for Manchester TUC yesterday afternoon. Around about that same time, there was a car cavalcade going through Belfast with no passerand blaring out of the speaker. So I think I took a de facto part in Belfast celebrations too. And other than that, it's been the We Shall Overrun thing we've been working with for the last 63 days, which is effectively what we're trying to do with We Shall Overcome. Is we form a ramshackle tag team, and everybody does a little bit every day. And we decided that we're going to go all the way around the world, the equator. We're gonna run, walk, or wheel 24,901 miles, which would take to go around the globe, the equator. Yeah. So the finishing line is this weekend. We've officially crossed it now. So it's basically been the tippity tapping on the calculator to make sure I was right and all that as well behind the scenes. So it's kind of nice because I've done 63 days worth of an hour's work every night on the calculator just to have a rest before we start again.
You're doing are you doing like a celebratory lap now? Are you just sort of going around and showboating, milking it?
Do you reckon like an Olympic winner? You know, no. I think I'm gonna have a week off, and then Monday week, we're going to start again, but from pole to pole rather than around the equator. Slightly shorter distance, the world not being an entire sphere, but yeah, we'll start again because, as I say, I'm not convinced that gigging's going to be available again after June the 21st. Not inside. And so we've got to continue supporting frontline community causes for We Shall Overcome in whatever way we can. And at the moment, that We Shall Overrun thing, it's getting people working together, and there's a sense of community around it, and it's raising some money for a GoFundMe, which is ticking all our boxes, you know. So it's been good.
Yeah, brilliant. And what are you drinking, Joe?
I'm drinking a cold alcohol-free lager because I don't actually drink, so I don't mind some of the better ones. But I've been a socialist. I'm not advertising no bloody brand. It's another alcohol-free lager.
Well, actually, I've gone through quite a lot of the non-alcoholic lagers, and that. And there is a German one that you have to order online, I think, unfortunately. That's quite nice. But I've had a kind of like a ranking system for the last couple of years, and it's hard, actually. There's an awful lot of horrible stuff as well, isn't there?
Oh, God, yeah. No, it's basically alcohol with all the fun taken out, isn't it? But at the same time, being an all or nothing kind of a guy, nothing is better than all in my case.
Totally. Okay, well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. It's been, as I say, I've been wanting to talk about some of the sort of connections between politics and music, and particularly also considering the period that we've just been through. And obviously, I think music played quite a big part in the whole Corbyn movement. So it'd be interesting to know what you think about that. But I just want to start off by asking, could start with you, Jess, about like how lockdown has felt as a musician, because I suppose you probably just want to be out there, don't you? That sort of connection, such a big deal, isn't it, for people that play, folk music and punk and stuff like you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's been weird, but I think it's been so long now that it's going to be weird going back to actual gigs, which I never thought I'd say, because that's what I do, that's what I love. But it's I can't say I've enjoyed it particularly. It has been nice not having to go and get trains that don't show up or show up late. That's been a bonus, not having to travel on the horrendous public transport network. But yeah, as we were saying before we came on, I think it's helped people who wouldn't ordinarily get out to gigs like get involved with it, which has been really, really nice. And it's nice to see people's reactions to like the stuff that you're doing online. And it's kind of strange because like seeing I have to be in exactly the right place where I'm playing and I'm reading the comments at the same time. But then sometimes someone will post something funny and I'll just collapse into laughter, which obviously not particularly professional, but I think people appreciate it, and it is different to a normal gig.
That's what I like. I mean, one of the suggestions for kind of developing this show is to have comments that come in, obviously, and like loads of people are doing that. But I'm just wondering, like, I really struggle to to keep control of everything normally,
Yeah.
but then have people commenting as well. It must be quite like difficult.
I completely lose my train of thought. But then it's like I've been doing quite a few gigs where I've just said, right, I'm going live and we're going to be here for a couple of hours. And I don't think people mind, because usually you've only got your half an hour or your 45-minute set and you've got to get all your songs in. But then you can have a conversation with people on stage.
Yeah.
On stage. Which is kind of cool. But yeah, it's hard doing both things at once. I do have to either shut my eyes or try and look away from the screen sometimes. Otherwise I do get a bit distracted.
And Joe, what about you? How have you found it sort of overall? If you kind of like summarize the last 12 months, how have you found it?
It's been quite hard. I've had to sort of innovate a little bit. Like Jess said, it'll probably actually be weird going back because I'm not used to nobody clapping in between songs. But then for the first 20 years of my musical career, I was used to that anyway, you know. So it's been good. I've benefited from having a big back catalogue, you know, and because I've done the history albums through the Spanish Civil War and the trenches and Hull's fishing fleet and the miners' strike, I was able to do dedicated nights to those things. So that broke it up a bit rather than going on stage and doing the same songs over and over. So I found that really, really good. So I'm really relieved to have that kind of thing. So I'm used to, as a live musician, I'm used to kind of busking it on the night. If somebody says something from the crowd, that can often become the theme of what I'm talking about, you know, in between the politics. So without that, I've had to sort of plan the gigs a little bit better. You know, this is how I'm going to introduce this song and this is what I'm going to say there. And I don't have the problem that Jess has because I've only got my phone. So I can't see the comments. I can't see how many people are watching. I can't see the interaction. So I'm literally playing a gig to my phone. And that's a kind of a weird thing, you know, but they're used to it now, and Mrs. S loves it, you know, because I'm not 4 hours in either direction to a gig, you know, because Scarborough's a weird place. It's an hour from a motorway, and there aren't many places in the UK that are an hour from a motorway, and you know, it's quite a remote place. So I've got a long way to drive to get to gigs, and so she's only too happy to have me walk to the shed and back.
Do you remember a few years ago when you drove through the snow to get to the People's Bookshop in Durham, and you just kind of made it, like played a few songs and then drove all the way back to Scarborough in the snow again?
Aye, those are the sort of things that just used to that. Yeah. I went through so many years. I started playing my own songs in 1987, and it wasn't until 2013 that anybody really was interested, you know. So I went for a long time of nobody caring and having to beg for gigs and really struggling to get on bills. And in 2013, so much changed, you know, Revolution and Empty Room album and then No Passaran after it. And people were asking me to play. And so it don't matter what the weather's like. If you booked us, I'll get there because I'm just so grateful, you know, after the first sort of 15 years of my musical life. Was it 15 or was it 25? I'm losing my maths. But it was all 25. The first 25 years of being a musician was hard. The last few years, despite having to drive all over the country, have been a walk in the park in comparison. So I'm just so grateful that people like you will book us, snow or not.
Jess, are you getting any sense that like there's going to be some benefits? Like, I mean, obviously, once we, this summer's going to be strange, isn't it? Because there's kind of expectations that gigs going to come back. I'm not quite sure about that. And even if they do, it'll be a different kind of setup, won't it? But do you get a sense that like this kind of, has there been benefits to being able to broadcast yourself, and have you picked up like extra, I don't know, Spotify followers and stuff like that, or have you noticed that at all?
Definitely. I mean, I've not really been doing it for very long, maybe 3 or 4 years since I finished uni. So it's like the case of building up slowly, getting better and better gigs. And yeah, no, I've hated it, but lockdown's been really, really good for me. I can't deny that at all, because it has just been a case of someone will message you, do you want to play this gig? Yeah, go on then. And it's just been, being able to jump on so many different lineups for loads of different things and support a load of brilliant causes along the way, and it's putting you in front of a new audience. So it has been brilliant for me, much as I've not loved it, but yeah. And the people have said that they're looking forward to coming to shows when gigs start again. So it's it's.
I suppose that'll be the test, won't it? If you can, maybe from now on as well, there'll be like a kind of mix, like most kind of gay and musicians, will do a mix of kind of physical gigs and then do maybe like one or two kind of shows through Zoom or whatever it is, and then I suppose it'll be interesting to see if it kind of converts people into being live fans as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be okay, I think, as a solo musician, even if people have to be socially distanced and sat at their own tables, because it's not so much a thing where you have everyone crowded on the barrier, dancing around, mosh pits and whatever. But I think it's going to be harder for bands to get back to it. I've got a couple of dates with a band called Headsticks booked in the autumn, who I absolutely love. But you can't go to a Headsticks gig sitting down. It's just, it just won't work at all. Because that's part of the dynamic of the music with a lot of people. So, yeah, but I definitely think I'll keep doing the online stuff, because it just brings in more people, and it means more people can access it who otherwise wouldn't be able to come to gigs. So it's nice for everyone.
And Joe, what about for you? Like, because you've been doing it a long time, but you've also got, your job as well, haven't you? Is it kind of, without going into details of your finances, but I'm just wondering about the kind of financial hit that these things have, or does it not actually make a huge amount of difference?
It makes no difference at all to me financially, because I tend to give away anything that I earn with the music. I only ask for expenses most of the time anyway, and even that I'll only take if I ain't got, if I've got a free gig coming up and I need to put diesel in the tank. So music's always been a break-even thing for me. I've had to, because I couldn't do the fundraising gigs, I've had to adapt a little bit and raise funds in other ways. But I'm not a professional musician, and so I've not had to worry about it financially. There's been that many broken down washing machines because people have been at home all the time breaking them, that I've been working 6 and 7 day weeks right away from lockdown. So I'm able to pay the bills without worrying about it, and consequently everything that I've been able to do musically has been geared towards getting it through to food banks and soup kitchens and crisis centres and support networks at the grassroots. It's just been a continuation of benefit gigs without the gigs.
Yeah. And what about We Shall Overcome? You did it. Have you done it this year? Is that right?
We've run it every year. We did the big Isolation Festival last Easter Sunday last year. Jess played and was headlined by Billy Bragg and Grace Peachy, and we had Sid Griffin there from the Long Riders, and a whole bunch of amazing acts sort of doing 15-minute slots each. That raised about 28 grand, which we got straight to the front line. And on and off, we've done live stream events for it. I've been selling my music and merch for it. We've done, I did a mile every morning for 169 mornings for all refugee, all refugee support. And we did a big thingy through January for Pauline, which was like Smile a Day for Pauline. And everybody posted a smile, and that was raising money for Pauline. Since then, we've been doing the We Shall Overrun. And so just had to innovate a little bit, just think outside the box, because the live stream thing's been slowly dying. Just think, how else can we do it? And how can we bring more people in that aren't just musicians, because I don't want We Shall Overcome to be this closed shop for people with guitars. I want everybody to feel a part of it and everybody to feel welcome with whatever skills they could bring to the table. So it's been good. Having to think about what we can do and when and how has been really good to keep my brain going rather than staring at the walls.
Yeah. And then just thinking about the sort of politics of it as well, because I think it's been a kind of tricky time for all of us on the left, I suppose, especially over the last year. And I just wondered, Jess, if, because you've been very kind of, well, both you and Joe have been upfront about your politics. You've both been supporters of, the Corbyn project as a whole and so on. Have you, how does it feel now to be in that kind of environment where we're looking back on it and it's kind of, or does it feel like history to you, or is there still still sparks there?
I keep having to tell myself to think differently, because I was absolutely gutted with the result of the last general election, Corbyn going. But I think it's more the music that got me into politics, because I was writing protest songs, but nothing overtly political, I suppose. And then I got in with the Labour Party in Stourbridge. They'd organised gigs at my local venue, Kate Fitzgerald, so I got to know people. And I've gone around the country playing like Labour Party fundraisers or whatever. So I keep having to remind myself that it's the people on the grassroots that the people doing all the work, basically, that I want to support. And I try not to get too downhearted by anything. I'm trying not to look too closely at the Labour Party at the moment, but a lot of it just gets me down. And through lockdown, I'm just not looking at that. I'm not sharing it. I'm not starting an argument on Facebook because I just can't at the moment. But so I'm just sitting in my room writing my protest songs, and I'll keep doing that. Yeah.
And Joe, you're you've always been really positive and you really kind of, obviously, I know I remember speaking to you about in the early days of the Corbyn project, and you were kind of skeptical that you were, and maybe kind of right as well, but you said I'm not sure this is going to change, it's not going to work, it's not going to, there's a whole establishment against us and so on. And obviously, but then you threw yourself very much into it. Does it feel dispiriting, all that side of things, or?
Do you know what? The only dispiriting thing I find is that people can't see what just happened. I wasn't in the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn became the leader. I joined because I saw it on two levels, Ben. I think we did discuss this. I saw it as an opportunity to bring Labour Party closer to people again, rather than this kind of, the Parliamentary Labour Party has been this remote kind of institution on its own, hasn't it? Officially the head of the Labour movement, but miles away from the rest of us. And when Corbyn came along, I did see a chance to maybe rein that back in, pull it back together. But also at the same time, I could see that, as you just said, I could see that the establishment wouldn't let that happen. There is no way an establishment body like Parliament is going to allow the country to vote itself socialist. Zero chance of that happening. And so what I was interested in was it that being shown to all of us, that being proved to the country that they would do anything to stop that happening, which they did. They turned every single possible force, including a big chunk of the Parliamentary Labour Party itself, against that project. And for me, it was so obviously done that it proves that the Labour Party itself, or the Parliamentary Labour Party, is not fit for purpose. It proves it beyond any shadow of a doubt. And my only frustration is that people can't see that. They're like, oh, we'll have another go. Let's vote ourselves socialist again. Look, you had a once-in-a-generation chance, and you saw how they rounded on you and tore it apart. And if you can't see it now, you're never going to be able to see it. And so that's the only frustration I have in terms of being a socialist. Now you go back to your roots. You start organising in your communities. You start talking to the real people in the streets of your communities, working out what they want to do, what they think, how they see the world, and just trying to build again from the bottom. But in terms of the Parliamentary Labour Party, we're on telly. I can't say what I would do, but there are amazing people in there. Probably about 8 of them. And the rest of them would not have allowed a Corbyn government to function anyway. They would have voted with the Tories against it, and they would have brought it down. I do not believe for a single second that the Parliamentary Labour Party, even in power, would have allowed socialism to be cut loose.
Do you, Joe, do you think that, I mean, I think it's really interesting what you're saying. Do you think that, like, in some ways, the expectation was so high amongst, because there was there was tens, hundreds of thousands of people that joined specifically to support that project and so on. And people did have very high expectations. They thought that Jeremy was going to become Prime Minister. They thought we were going to be able to implement those, fantastic manifestos and so on. And then, if we take your kind of analysis of it, how do we stop people from then dropping off a cliff off that kind of high point? Because, like, it's obviously it's important to keep people interested and move, and then not everybody can do the kind of grassroots stuff, the community things in the same way that somebody that's very kind of like active like you. So how do we stop people from getting disillusioned? Well, you do need to get active in some form or another, whether that's volunteer at your food bank, whether that's whatever it is in your community, because there's need in your community, no matter where it manifests itself and how it manifests itself. There's need there, and you need to use that energy, that positive energy that you've got, for that creative thing. You can't stagnate. You can't think, oh, well, that ain't possible, so we'll give up. And you can't think that only the Labour Party can change anything in your community, in your country. Because, I mean, you know them all, Ben. I've seen them and I watched them yesterday. They'll come on, and for the cheers, they'll give you a list of all the things that we've got to do. No intention of any of that happening if they were in power, but for the cheers and the applause, they'll tell you all the things that they do, which is basically a checklist of all the things that would put the world right. And then, you might get one of them if you're lucky in any given parliament. But you can't allow that to happen. The Corbyn thing was a really interesting thing for me. If you know your Gramsci, right? You've got he describes the establishment as being a castle, right? And the police and the armies defend the ramparts, and all the politicians and big business people are inside it, and we're all on the outside. And what Corbyn did was throw down a drawbridge. You heard him in all his speeches. He was saying, "What do you want? We will define our manifesto around what you want. You tell us what you want. You bring your campaigns to us, and we will listen." And for me, if that's throwing down the drawbridge to a whole bunch of people who stood outside and went, "Hey, look, it's Jeremy Corbyn. Whoa, Jeremy Corbyn. Do you know what I mean? No, I'm in here, and I'm going to die if you don't come in yourselves." And
basically, that's what happened. We all waved and wore T-shirts and cheered and sang "War Jeremy Corbyn" and didn't actually do any politics at all.
Yes, what do you? Sorry, go on, Joe. Yeah.
That sort of that whole Che Guevaraization of Jeremy Corbyn was so counterproductive. We're addicted to leaders in this country. We're addicted to being told how we should do. We love freedom, but we're addicted to being told, and that was the saddest thing of it all.
Jess, do you relate to that as well? I do understand what Joe's saying there. I think that was always a slight kind of doubt in my mind. I mean, I work very, closely with Jeremy and, through the whole project, right at the heart of it, loved so much about it. There was that slight doubt in my mind about the kind of grassroots, the sort of mobilization from below. Did you see that at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd never really been that into politics because politicians are just some people that you see on the TV, nobody representing what I thought, basically, until, Jeremy Corbyn, basically, that made me, him becoming the leader of the Labour Party made me join the Labour Party and get a lot more involved in grassroots gigs, be that fundraisers for food banks or the Labour Party or whatever. And yeah, I've completely lost where I was going with that. But it's I think it's easy as a musician to get more involved, kind of, because you like, someone comes and asks, will you play this gig? And I'm like, yes, I'll play this gig. But getting people to actually come to the meetings or come to the gigs where you're talking about the politics is like pulling teeth. It's trying to get people interested. If they say, oh yeah, I love Jeremy Corbyn, I agree with what he say. Okay, right, come on then, we're doing this now. A lot of it, I suppose, was a bit superficial. I mean, can't blame people because it's hard mentally to stay engaged with it all when you've got so much other stuff going on. But yeah, that's kind of my
yeah. And do you like have it as a sort of a radical, like politically radical musician? Do you have do you feel a sense of like duty to kind of give people like a bit of hope and a sense of direction, or do you just do your thing and hope that people react to it and get mobilized by it?
I think a bit of both really, because I mean the lyrics are always the most important thing for me, and I want my songs to say something, and in recent years they have been gearing a lot more towards the political. I try not to, I don't know, delve too deep, no names or dates or anything like that generally. So it's more applicable, and I think that the songs weather better, I suppose, because you can apply them to different things. But yeah, I like them to matter. I think that's important. If people are singing along, and I don't know, it gives a kind of sense of community, I suppose. Everyone's singing along the same words, and it actually meaning something to them. Yeah,
I was just wondering as well. Actually, did you like when you started, writing songs and playing guitar and so? Did you start off by thinking I'm going to do this and it's going to be political, or did that sort of come later and you just singing about your own kind of personal experience and then that became political?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't political. I suppose I was political, but I just didn't know the terminology for anything or what this party stood for, what that party stood for. But it was always, I never wanted to do the whiny love songs that everyone seems to do, because I just hate it with the passion. I see Joe nodding down there. But I don't know. I just want something to mean something. So it wasn't, I suppose, that political. I think one of my earliest songs that I think I wrote it when I was about 14 is a song about my hatred of the X Factor and stuff like that. So it was always going to be a bit shouty, a bit standoffish, I suppose. And then the politics crept in.
Yeah. And Joe, can you like cast your mind back to when you first started writing stuff? How old were you when you started writing songs?
14. But before I answer that question, I've got to say Jess's songs resonate with people more than I've ever seen anybody. She's a great writer. It's not polemic, you know. She just gets you right in there. Yeah. In the heart, and she really is able to write those things. She's brilliant. So, I was 14. It was Stiff Little Things in the Clash that made me want to pick up a guitar. So, I think you're instantly kind of switched on to a certain political slant already. And then when you got people like Billy Bragg, he was on top of the pops when I'm like 14, 15, and you got the Men That Couldn't Hang teaching you little bits of history, and so. It probably wasn't until 2007 where I had the confidence to really say, right, actually, I can write this, you know, and I've got the skills by then to be able to do it. And I wrote a song called November the 12th for my First World War album, and I thought, do you know what? I've actually nailed that. I've really got it. It's original in the where it's coming from, and yet it does what it needs to do. And from there, it was a real confidence lift. But I mean, bear in mind at that point, I was 36 years old, and I've been writing for years and years and years. So I'm kind of slightly jealous of Jess because she's got it much earlier in her life and ain't going to waste all them years. But actually, Jess touched on something really important, and I think it's a big question for the Labour movement in general, and that is who teaches people about socialism? I hear time and time again, oh, these idiots on the doorstep didn't know what I was talking about, and did it. But who teaches working class people about socialism? Now, there's no mass trade union movement. You don't get it in schools. You don't get it in workplaces. You don't get it in universities unless you study it, you know, because when I was at university, there's Marxist groups all over the campus or whatever. So I want that university, but, you know, in my era. And so you've got this kind of like, oh, we expect working class people to instinctively understand what socialism is and what they should be doing and the benefits of unity and solidarity. And that's expected to come from a diet of right-wing propaganda through newspapers and crap telly. Where did they get an ideological sense of the benefits of socialism from? Nobody answers that. Nobody does it. And it's just wrong to expect people to find a way there on their own. Unless we're there talking to people about it, what we can expect wall-to-wall Tories for generations to come. Because if we're not going to be part of that programme, part of showing people the benefits of sticking together, how are we going to expect them to get there on their own?
I mean, what? Sorry, yeah, go on, Jess.
I was thinking the other day, like, I did history at GCSE. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I remember I think it was probably about 15, and somebody was on about left wing and right wing. I didn't have a clue what they were talking about because I'd never been taught that. What left wing meant, what right wing meant. So it is. And like, people laugh at people for not knowing that kind of stuff, but you can't help it if no one's ever taught you.
And I think that the point about the trade unions is really important because sort of throughout their history, I mean, not necessarily in a kind of formal way, but that knowledge was just passed down through trade union branches, through kind of, you know, strike action and things, but people telling each other, you know, the kind of history of the movement and so on. And I mean, I've been talking to this with the Durham Miners Association about the lodges and how education happened in there. And it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't sort of Sunday school. It wasn't come along and listen to somebody presenting this history to you. It was kind of like, some of it was like picked up, while you were having a pint. Another one might be, you're talking to people like, the Czech Wayman or whatever in the, who had a kind of central role in kind of passing on that kind of trade union political knowledge and so on. And and around the kind of like late 70s, early 80s, probably to do with Thatcherism, probably to do with the, winter of discontent and the battering that the unions got. But they kind of dropped that off the agenda. So trade union education then became about something which, to be honest, is really important, but it's more technical. So it's about like, how do you become a good rep? How do you represent people? How do you make sure that that your members are not unfairly disciplined? How can you make sure you get great health and safety for them? But that's not the same thing as teaching people, what you're talking about, Joe, about socialism, about principles, about our history and how we got there.
Yeah, unless your principles come from there, from an ideological place, unless you know what socialism actually is, you end up becoming like a liberal institution that's fighting for a bunch of socialistic values, but with no ideological core. You're going to think that these are isolated incidents, that you fight one at a time, instead of realising it's part of a wider struggle. And you only have that if you understand that you have an ideological socialist core, and I would say it was probably the death of the NUM, or really the mines closure program under the Thatcher government and the John Major one that really killed that off. I think especially in your neck of the woods, there's a lot of people got their class consciousness from the NUM, from socials and stuff like that, and it was the biggest, baddest, boldest, badass union that ever been in this country, and they knew what they were doing. It wasn't fed to as dogma. It was a natural increased consciousness of where you stood in a wider struggle, and we've lost that. Trade unions, by and large, with few obvious exceptions, are sort of liberal talking shops now, that with no socialist core. And until we get that back, until we're teaching it to people in the workplace, I don't see that we can expect people on the doorstep to understand what the hell we're talking about.
Jess, I just wanted to go back to you kind of when you first started picking up a guitar and thinking about and politics and how you could express yourself. What were the kind of influences? Like, who were the people and the folk singers and the punk bands, whatever, that kind of that influenced you in all of
that? Well, the main one was Frank Turner, who I know Joe's going to start doing that in a minute. I just remember hearing one of his tunes on the radio, and it was which one was it? I Still Believe, which is all about music and proper music. Like proper bands shouting about stuff that they're believing, and I was like, I want to do that. That is my thing. And then I suppose you take a lot of inspiration from the people around you. I was very late to introduce myself to Billy Bragg. I suppose it was a lot of people telling me, "Oh, you sound like," well, obviously not sound like Billy Bragg. You should listen to Billy Bragg. So obviously I did, and it's mostly people that I've met along the way telling me, you should listen to this, and they're like, oh yeah, I like that, okay, I don't like that, and kind of going from there. But I think I played, oh crikey, I can't remember the year. I hadn't been gigging for very long at all. I played Black Country Festival, which happens every year, and I didn't know, a couple of people came up to me afterwards and said, oh, you should come and play down Kate Fitzgerald's, and they booked me for a gig, and it was a Labour Party gig. Pete Lowe was running for, I can't remember if it was councillor or MP at that point, and so I kind of fell in with that crowd, and that has influenced my politics immensely, especially in songwriting as well, because it, like, encouraging me to sing the political stuff.
Yeah.
Which I mean, don't get me wrong, my parents like my stuff, but they'd sooner me not do the political thing. My nan always shouts at me. She says, "Don't get involved in that stuff." Got to, Nan. It's got to be done.
And Joe, what about you? You mentioned the Clash, obviously, and we were talking about Stiff Little Fingers before, and me and you have got that in common. We're both like big fans of Jake Burns and SLF. But who kind of like who are the sort of big influences on you?
I think after Strummer and Jake Burns, really, I think you pick stuff up, and like Jess says, you some of the things people suggest to you, you think nah, and others you think that that's brilliant, and you sort of soak up the spirit of it all. So I'm probably as much influenced by that part of Bound for Glory where Woody walks away from the television studio and there's a big street parade and they're making up songs as they go along. Probably as influenced by that passage in that book as I am by any bit of musicianship, because that's where it is, isn't it? That's where music should be, singing people's stories and the way that they interconnect. And it doesn't have to always be polemic. It can be just a story about what happened to somebody one day, because that hits you in the same way that any great political headline would hit you, because you realise actually that happened to me, or that happened to somebody I know, and that's how it all interconnects. You can be political without being political, because you just pull people together. And I think over the years I've learned the two things really. But in essence, how I write now is just from learning all those different things from all those different people over the years, that you tell people stories, and it doesn't matter whether you're right or left wing. We share human traits, and if you've written it right, then anybody across the political spectrum will feel it and they'll connect with it, and they'll think, Jesus, yeah, he would have felt that, or she would have felt that in that situation. And before you know it, you've kind of gotten in, and that's where class consciousness in songwriting comes from. It's just trying to connect people with emotions they might have forgotten about, or make them look at situations that they haven't seen in that way. And I think that's what I do, and that's been influenced just by life as well as music, just people.
Yeah. And that's interesting what you're saying there. So and I've always felt that it's about listening to your albums and so on. They're designed not to say to people, well, I'm sorry, you're not my audience. You can't listen to a Joe Solo album. You're deliberately kind of welcoming like the whole range of people, and you're trying to hook something in somebody's consciousness, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe in these kind of little cliquey clubs that you get where you can be in here because you agree with me, and you can't because you said something once about the Tories. I don't agree with that. You're never going to get anywhere forming tiny little bubbles, little clubs of people who agree with you all the time. You need to reach out across the thing as well. Socialism starts with class. It starts with people. It starts with us against them. It starts with the recognition that whether we know it or not, a class war is going on, and they're fighting it, even if we are. And you need to see that society is not cut like that; it's cut like that, And if you, the best way to start is not through words and theories and books; it's through emotions. And the emotions will then make you look more into the politics. But if you start with politics, you drive people away. And that's the most counterproductive, worst case scenario ever, Start with a good story and bring people into it.
And I know you, Joe, you've talked about Joe Hill, quite a bit, inspiration, and also he said a pamphlet, no matter how good, is never read more than once. But a song is learned by heart and repeated over and over. And I think what he's trying to say there is that you know, that kind of it's just what you've been saying there about the emotion that kind of, you know, like hooks people into, and you know, people kind of, you know, sing it over in their minds and they get emotionally connected to it. And that's kind of like the power of song, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It most definitely is. It's you can say things in a song that are would be cheesy if you said them in a speech. So it's a completely different way of doing it. But because the music's the vehicle rather than the meaning of the words themselves, it'll get under people's skin a little bit easier. And so you can, because the cheesy thing to say is very often the thing that needs to be said, but people won't say it because it's cheesy. A song gives you that ability, you know, to just say what might be blindingly obvious, but isn't always said. People don't always say the obvious things. And because they don't, a whole bunch of people miss out or don't think that it's for them, or don't think that there's a connection there between what's just been said and their lives. Sometimes it needs the cheesy thing, it needs the big chorus, because that's what life is. The things that inspire us are those big, stupid, dumb, cheesy moments, and you need them. And if you don't get them, you get driven off things as being too dry. And politics is often an unwelcoming place. And I think that the music is a connection for people. And I think that's what mine and Jess's job is, to connect people to their own lives and to each other through songs.
I think the thing is as well with songs, you can be singing the same song for years, and even then you'll still find something new in the lyrics that you've not heard before. And, oh yeah, that's what that's about. And that'll keep happening. And people realise.
Yeah. And Jess, for you, could you kind of like, I've been, I mean, Joe like recommending you to me, and I hadn't kind of listened to your songs before, but I've been doing some listening over the weekend and things, and you know, like you can immediately feel that kind of raw emotion, and you know, like you just I can see why people say that they sing along to it, because it's that sort of thing. And could you imagine yourself, like, I mean, obviously you're saying a lot of political stuff there, but could you imagine yourself putting that into a speech, or you know, like you know, like a article, or is song your vehicle kind of thing?
Yeah, the song's definitely my vehicle. I'm terrible at public speaking. I'm absolutely awful. I'm nightmare on the radio and stuff like this as well. But if I put it in a song, I can practice that, and then I can get to a point where I can do it without thinking. And yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable singing than I am speaking, which I know sounds incredibly strange, but it's weird. You can put me on a stage in front of hundreds of people and ask me to sing to them, and I'll be fine. Put me like at the front of a classroom in front of 30 people, and I'll absolutely go to pieces.
The process is the same, Jess. If you watch speakers over and over again, there's a rhythm to a speech in the same way there's a rhythm to a song. It's ba-dum ba-dum laugh, ba-dum ba-dum cheer, ba-dum ba-dum laugh, ba-dum ba-dum, and it's broken up rhythmically. And the best speakers are brilliant at it. There aren't many around now to really see. But if you watch Dennis Skinner work a crowd, you know, it belongs to a generation who could really do it. But there's a rhythm to what Dennis does in the same way that there is a rhythm to our song works. And so it's just, a guitar's a comfortable thing to hide behind, isn't it?
You do poetry as well, don't you, Joe? I mean, I remember you did the poem in the bookshop with Why Are You So Angry, and that's incredibly powerful. But like when I was listening to it, and I've listened to it a load of times on back as well, it doesn't feel like poetry. It feels like a song as well.
It's a poem in that its rhythms work differently to how you'd work a song, and I think it needed emphasis in places where you couldn't necessarily make emphasis with the melody, so it worked best as a poem. But yeah, that I think that that was an important thing to write because it got a lot of stuff on my chest. But again, it's a class thing, isn't it? It's not saying so you got to vote Labour and everything will go away. It's saying, look, these are a whole bunch of things that are wrong with the world. Why ain't anybody putting them right? You know, how do we start? And it's important to cut across the static, really, of party politics sometimes, and just have a message that's strong, that people can't ignore it despite their own personal political prejudices.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about like the summer and beyond, when we go back to normal. There is no, I don't think we're going to go back to normal. There is no normal, is there? But I'm just thinking about venues and how that's going to look. And have you thought about all that? Jess, have you kind of like thought about like what, I mean, we were talking about it before about, you know, like people sitting at tables and how that's going to affect what you do and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's obviously I'm looking forward to hopefully at some point in the next 10 years getting back to playing a normal gig with a normal crowd that are allowed to be together and not be separated in tables. But I'm looking forward to getting back to it full stop, just to play in front of an audience again and see people. I mean, I haven't been booking gigs. I've been saying yes to gigs when people have asked me, because I just can't face everything being cancelled again, which I don't want it to happen. I'm kind of anticipating it happening, because I mean, and fair enough, people are just going to want to get back to normal, and that can't happen reasonably. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to, even if it's people sat at different tables and me halfway across the room, I don't mind. I won't enjoy it as much, but it would be nice to play to people rather than computer screens.
Yeah. And Joe, you were saying that you've spent a lot of time over the last year playing to your phone. So I suppose you're kind of looking forward to having real people. But will some of that, like, I mean, over the summer, I suppose there can be kind of outdoor gigs and things like that. But then as we go into winter, there becomes then the issue about, you know, obviously gigs are, you know, they're designed to be, you know, cramped social spaces, aren't they?
Yeah, I think I'm not holding out any hope. I'm like Jess. I've been saying yes to things that have been offered, but I've got no real hope that those gigs are going to actually occur. I think Dominic Raab today was saying that although the restrictions on the 21st would be fully lifted, some of the restrictions would stay in place, which is typical of the government's mixed messaging at the moment, isn't it? But I think the thing that we will struggle with is the indoor places that are full. I'm not suggesting for a minute your solo gigs are ever full, but you know, I do an awful lot of benefit gigs for various causes, and with restrictions in place, they're not going to make any money, so it's not going to be worth.
Yeah,
Not going to be worth driving the other end of the country to raise 20 quid when I could do that online. So I'm not so sure that what I do in terms of the wider sort of music scene is going to be in demand for quite a long time. And what Jess does is slightly different, and I can't wait to see her out there, you know, because I think on the other side of this, it's probably going to go bang for her, because I think if anybody's written lockdown and the way people feel and the things that people miss, I think it's Jess, and I think she's been an ace. So yeah. I think I'll go back to it as soon as I possibly can. But in the meantime, I'll just keep thinking of ways of doing the thing I do in whatever form that comes, you know.
Yeah. Jess, Joe's just kind of done a good PR job for you there. I just and he's totally right as well. I'm going to keep listening to your music. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But who else around, whether it's in Black Country, West Midlands, or just in the country, who else should we kind of be listening to and looking out for?
Well, I mean, the gig that I did last night was for my mate Sam Drazy. It was his album launch. He just released a new album called Red versus Blue, which you won't be able to guess what that title's about. He's brilliant protest singer. He got a couple of those songs where I'm like, damn, I wish I'd written that, because it's just perfect. I definitely recommend checking him out because he's brilliant.
Great. And if people want to listen to your music, what's the best way of doing it? And in terms of like, obviously, I know I've found you on Spotify, but just wondering sort of like what's most kind of beneficial for people if they want to kind of, I suppose, make a contribution as well.
Well, if anyone wants to buy any of the stuff, it's all on Bandcamp and you can stream it on there as well. But you can listen to it anywhere you'd usually listen to stuff. But come to a gig because it's better.
And Joe, what about you've already said about Jess and Star Shears and any other people that you think that maybe you've kind of come across through lockdown and so on that you'd like to kind of mention?
I just think there's a lot of great voices around at the moment. I think Jess is the best of them, but I think like she just said, Sam's album is really good. I'm playing some of that tomorrow on the radio show, and there's a whole bunch of people that are starting to wake up to these things, and they're putting political songs in their sets, and they might not have full albums of it yet, and their political viewpoints might not be fully formed, but they're responding to the circumstances around them, and that's the start, isn't it? And I think all of that's to be applauded and encouraged, and I think the more that those people are out there and they're meeting people from the political from the trade unions and from the various political campaigns at street level, and having their politics more rounded and fully formed, then the better everything's going to be. And I think that it's in a healthy place. I think people are writing. They might be frustrated at the moment with party politics, but as I said to you before, I don't think that stops us on any other level. Party politics is a beast all on its own. It doesn't stop us working in our communities and supporting each other. And you write what you say. It's the old thing that Bernie Rhodes told the Clash, wasn't it? Right away back in the day, write about your life, write about what's in front of you, write about what you see. And that changed an entire way of writing songs, really. And I think that it's important to do that. Just write the world around you and write what you see and feel. And there's loads of people doing it, and I think it's brilliant. I think music's really healthy.
So I think the best thing to do is just to tune into your show on a Monday, and I'd be very surprised if people didn't come away from that with a list of at least 3 albums that they now need to buy.
The playlists that you have are just fantastic, Joe. And even though you were saying before about Monday maybe being a bad night for people, but definitely people should listen in. And I need to go back and find the Stiff Little Fingers one from last Monday, because that's a very important part of my childhood. That
it's not on a Mixcloud thing anymore. So you blink and miss my shows. It's like everything in life. You have to be in the moment or you miss it.
Yeah. So we've come to the end of our hour. In fact, we've gone over it, and it always goes so bloody quickly, these Pint and Politics sessions. But it's been fantastic. But I just wanted to kind of give you one last kind of like the end of the news item sort of thing, or maybe on question time when you get one. It's a bit of a nice question at the end. But so just thinking about one political song, Jess, that that you think everybody should kind of search out and listen to?
No Pass Around.
No Pass Around.
Love that
by
song.
Mr. Joe Solo. It is fantastic. It is really, really a fantastic song. Okay, Joe, what about you?
It's got to be If We're Damned by Jess Silk, hasn't it? I've got to return the favour there. But that's a fantastic song. She wrote it as her own personal reflections after the December 2019 election, and yet it reaches right out across everybody. It's just such a brilliantly written song. It's so perfectly pitched. That's definitely an anthem for the last sort of 14, 15 months. I think it absolutely taps into the way people feel, and they should listen to it really loud every day.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to be in trouble with all the Line of Duty fans that keep saying to me that I have to finish this program bang on 9 so they can watch it. Apparently it's the finale tonight, but I have actually caught up now, so I am watching it, I must admit. But tonight's been fantastic. We really enjoyed it, and thank you so much for coming on. I think it would be, always say this, but it would be nice to have you back on, because there's just so many different strands to this, and obviously as things kind of open up, be really good to have you back on and talk a bit more about politics and and how the gigging's going. Hopefully we can get it back on the road from the summer, but let's see. But thank you very much for coming on. Really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna kind of like call last orders and close the bar.
Cheers, Ben. Good to see you, Jess.
Thank you very much.